सेशन जो कंपोस्टिंग पर था, हम लोग अब अपना दूसरा सेशन स्टार्ट करने जा रहे हैं डॉक्टर सूरज पांडे जी के साथ, जो कि क्लाइमेट चेंज एक्सपर्ट हैं। उनका लगभग 20 साल का एक्सपीरियंस हो गया है क्लाइमेट चेंज पर काम करते हुए, और करेंटली भी वो बहुत सारे राज्यों के साथ काम कर रहे हैं, सभी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स के साथ काम करके उन लोग का हैंड होल्डिंग कर रहे हैं, उन लोग का अडेप्टेशन प्लान डेवलप करने में मदद कर रहे हैं, उन लोग का हैंड होल्डिंग कर रहे हैं और उन लोगों को गाइड कर रहे हैं। तो उनके इस एक्सपीरियंस से पीपल लर्न करना चाहता है, पीपल सीखना चाहता है। और सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है कि हम लोग को वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट रिलेटेड हम लोग को अंडरस्टैंडिंग चाहिए। ये क्लाइमेट चेंज से किस तरह से लिंकेज है। जहां तक हम लोग को समझ में आता है कि जो हम लोग के कूड़े का अंबार, कचरे का अंबार जो लग रहा है लैंडफिल्स में, जो हम लोग के नदियों में लग रहा है, जो कहीं पर भी वेस्ट जहां पर पाइल अप हो रहे हैं, वो हम लोग के लिए क्लाइमेट चेंज के एंगल से सही नहीं है। हम लोग के लिए वो बहुत बुरा असर डाल रहा है। लेकिन वो क्या बुरा असर डाल रहा है, उसका क्या डिटेल्स है, उसका क्या क्लाइमेट पर असर है, ये आज हम लोग एक्सपर्ट से समझने की कोशिश करेंगे। तो here we give the stage to Dr. Suraj Pandey so that he can explain us in detail what is it. Dr. Suraj Pandey.
Thank you, Rani and Shubkamni, again, inviting me on this platform, and many congratulations for celebrating your, the Foundation Day week of Foundation. Now we should say week of People, the Resilience Lab. My heartiest congratulations to you and to the team also for taking forward the agenda of climate change, sustainable development, natural resource management, highlighting the local issues.
Thank you so much.
How the science can be, blended very well with the social communities. So this is coming out very nicely. Actually, I have been listening to all your webinar series since last 1 week, and the way it is coming out, it is quite commendable actually from people's side.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, so but I can see that only one audience is there, Gaurav Sinha. Gaurav, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well done. So Gaurav, just wanted to know, you have a good background of science also? Just asking.
No, no sir.
No problem, no problem. I just wanted to make everybody, comfortable, because the facts and theories which I am going to discuss is slightly, touching the concept and the fundamentals of science when we are discussing.
Also, just a second, Dr. Pandey. Actually, we are also live streaming it on Facebook. And Facebook, we are getting a lot of viewers over there. So it is not just this group, it is also the live streaming group over there. So we have a larger audience and we have a mix of audience. One, those who would really understand the science behind it, but also some laymen. So we have to, make the conversation should be such that it should be understandable to all.
Yes. Right, thank you. So the title says that, GHGs and the waste management are dealing a new way of climate change. So initially I thought of, making it a very site-specific discussion on this topic, but it becomes then very difficult, Suppose if I am talking about another geography, and so how to bring out the real issues. So I thought of also highlighting, the generic issues, which is initially related to the theories behind the GHGs and how it is working and how it is impacting everything. So I just wanted to, upload my presentation. So can I go to this one, share screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is it visible?
Yes, it is.
Should be, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, the GHGs and the waste management, a new way of dealing with climate change. So the topic is, quite generic, and I thought of, highlighting some of the scientific principles behind how the GHGs are, trapping in the atmosphere, and the things are, changing and giving us the negative impact on various issues related to our, the biosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, as well as the atmosphere. So when I started doing my, the research, the doctoral research on the climate change, I realized that, to understand the issues of climate change and the climatology, one has to, focus on the various theories. And I found that one of the theories very important to understand the nitty-gritty and fundamentals of the climate change. And the theory is about Gaia hypothesis. So Gaia hypothesis was propounded by Dr. James Lovelock in the year of 1990, I think. So this theory is all about, the how the geophysical changes are also not only impacting our, the Earth system, but also it is making a lot of, the changes in the uh, atmosphere as well as in the planetary movements. So if you get a chance to, read the Gaia hypothesis, so you will come to know that how it is also, directly indicating and impacting the issues related to the climate change. So we know that I'm going to discuss about the GHGs, that is the greenhouse gas. So let's have a, look at the basic principle, how it is impacting. So we should know that how the sun energy is, interacting with the earth surface. And when it is interacting, what are the, the rays are interacting and coming in which form, and how it is emitting. So when we understand this, the entire, the concept of exchange of energy from one element to another element, it is making a lot of changes in our atmosphere as well as in the geophysical system. So when the sun is, the when the energy is coming from sun, it calls. I mean, we know it is known as insolation, incoming solar radiation. So when it is coming, so these are the short waves. It comes very fast, but it takes time. So when it is interacting with the Earth's surface and going back to the atmosphere, then it becomes a long wave. So while going back, because of these gases, the gases which is which are emitted by us, which are emitted by the anthropogenic activities, which you can see, I mentioned it in the next picture if you can see. So all these emitted gases are trapping that energy, the long wave. So it is not allowing to exit the atmosphere, and it is trapping inside. So that is called a greenhouse gas effect. So this is the basic principle of understanding that greenhouse gas. So, many examples are available. So, but this is the best one. So, the rays which are coming is the visible rays which is coming, as well as the infrared. So, this is, so when it is interacting with the surface, so it becomes the infrared rays, and then it takes a lot of time. So, if you see on the other picture, it says that, we are, the GHGs are, the coming out. We will learn about the GHGs, what are the GHGs, and from the deforestation activities, from the vehicular pollution, from industrial pollution, from agriculture pollution. And then here comes in the next slide, it says that how the greenhouse gases warms our planet. So as I was indicating that, the many gases are there in the atmosphere, and it is all, emitted by us, by the anthropogenic activities, as well as, some of the natural activities. I should not say the anthropogenic, because, the volcanic eruption is another factor of, contributing in the atmosphere. Some of the gases are there. So, but the major, the gases which is mentioned over here, the carbon dioxide, these are the major contributor to the greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, fluorinated gaseous element. So now you can see on the other side, the pie diagram says that the carbon dioxide, 76%, this gas is available in the atmosphere. So this is the main cause of, the greenhouse gas, which is also resulting into the change in the climatic phenomena. That means I am not getting the average temperature. My temperature is, very extreme. My rainfall is very high. My rainfall is erratic, and my humidity is almost dried off from the surface. Clear? Okay. So what are the implications? So the implication is that if you see that since last time, I forgot to, insert one of the very good picture. I got it from some of the very old book of 1890. which also confirms that the climate change is happening since the 19th century. So since 18th century, since 19th century, this is happening. I mean, since 17th century, this is what they have indicated because of the industrial revolution. And if you can see, this diagram is very explicit, and it says that that global mean temperature of land and ocean is continuously since 1880. I mean, these are the baseline data information available with the NASA and many other, the climatic agency, that the temperature is escalating every 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, every year the temperature is. But you should notice the temperature if you see the this the diagram. So by 20, I mean in the year of 2000, suddenly there is an exponential rise in the temperature. So this is all because of the greenhouse gases, because these are the result, these are the gases coming out from our the anthropogenic activities, from industrial revolutions when we started in 1870, and then aviation sector, from industrial, from city, from urban areas, from agriculture, so many things. So you see the continuous rise in the temperature is there. So there is no chance of reducing the temperature unless we go for reducing these emissions from the atmosphere. So in the next slides, so how it is happening. So we should know actually how it is happening. We are talking about, we have been learning a lot about climate change is happening. Even a common man, if a person, a pedestrian walker can, tell you that, okay, train is not there since last 10 days, since 5 days, and the temperature is very high. It's all because of the perils of the weather. And the perils of the weather says that, yeah, climate change is happening because the normal phenomena is not available in the atmosphere. But how it is happening? Because we are responsible, as I mentioned many times, because the GHGs are GHGs completely, coming out from the anthropogenic activities. And if you see in the first diagram how farms contribute to the climate change. So farm activities are majorly, contributing the carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide in the atmosphere. So these are the major factors. If you see the methane, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, these are the major source of greenhouse gas emissions coming out from the agriculture sector. And if we are, magnifying our research on the agriculture sector, so it says that if we are using the maximum nitrogen-based fertilizer, so it is additionally contributing to the climate change. So that means we are, adding, I mean, we are not even reducing, we are not even thinking of reducing the emission, but we are adding more and more gases in the atmosphere so that our temperature gets very, very high. And on the other side, you see, this is the air pollution. So this air pollution, I think we all are very much clear that, this air pollution is only urban cities are responsible. Majorly, the urban areas are responsible for it. But the agriculture activities are also responsible for contributing the air pollution in the atmosphere. I think the recent discussion, I mean, since last 1 decade, we are discussing about the crop residue burning. So the farmer, burning their residue, and when it gets burned, so it is going to the atmosphere, and then it is trapping over there. So this is all the carbon monoxide, which is causing health hazard, environmental damages, the water pollution, as well as the environmental degradation. So these are the factors, these are the implications coming out from the crop residue burning. So agriculture air pollution is also one of the major contributors in the air, polluting the air of our atmosphere. So majorly, what are the negative impact we are observing? That is these are the implications. So I indicated it as an implication. So melting of glaciers. So if you see, this picture says that in the year 1960, the mountain was full of it was a completely snow-capped mountain. But if you see in the year of 2007, there is no glacier. I mean, there is no snow. So all melted. So everything melted away and nothing is now available. So you cannot see that white snow-capped mountains. So it looks like a complete dry black look mountain of almost 8,000 meter high. So that is one thing. This is one example. In the other picture, if you see that climate extreme, so flooding is very frequent these days. So when the rain is coming, it is a kind of in the plain area also. Sometimes it feels that flash flood is there, though the flash flood phenomena is a mountainous phenomena when the flood is coming. But if you see here also, the urban areas submerging in the flood, and these are very frequent events of climate extremes. So, in fact, our country in Mumbai is the biggest example of urban flooding. Chennai is another example. Calcutta is okay. That is every year it is coming over there. But uh, in fact, it has also seen. I mean, in 2015, in Srinagar, in the Srinagar Kashmir Valley also, uh, the urban flood was experienced, and uh, and because of that, the extremities are impacting our activities, and then we are defining it as climate change. Then the crop failure is another biggest example. So there is no moisture, there is no humidity available in the atmosphere, the erratic rainfalls are there, temperature is very high. So we have to think it that how we can have a kind of a second option of our survival. So we should think of the survival in our second inning. So this is what I wanted to say. And then frequent droughts. So drought occurrence is another the phenomena which is resulting from the change in the climatic pattern. So when rain is not there, when moisture is not there, when groundwater is not there, and so you see because of that, the drought conditions are prevailing across the country. And India is since last 10 years continuously major part of our country is undergoing a drought condition. In Telangana, in Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Rajasthan, Gujarat. I mean, many of these, even in Jammu and Kashmir also, in the dry part of the state, they are experiencing a drought condition. In Himachal Pradesh, in Uttarakhand also, there is no water for agriculture, for crop, for drinking water. In Shimla is recently the entire city was facing the water crisis. I mean, there was no water to drink. So these are the challenges coming out uh, from the extremities of the climate change. So it is all linked to the climate change, linked to the greenhouse gases. So then I thought of discussing that what could be the another option for our survival. Okay, there are many the options available with us, but in day-to-day life we should be knowing that what is near to us, and the near to us is our waste. So that is one thing. So I thought of discussing how we can manage it and how we can quantify our waste. So knowing your waste is very important in this section of the discussion. So I thought of putting the slides related to the zero waste for zero warming solution for a finite planet. Is it okay? If any question is there in the from the previous slides, I can discuss it over here, or if you want, we can do it in the end of the presentation. Right. Let me just go to the next slide. So according to IPCC, what IPCC says about the waste management, I mean, what I'm going to discuss, it is all linked to the GHGs. Just keep it in your mind that it is all linked to the GHG emissions as well as the climate change. So waste management decisions are often made locally without concurrent quantification of GHG mitigation. The importance of the waste sector for reducing global GHG emission has been underestimated. So medium evidence and high agreement. So this is mentioned in the fifth assessment report of the IPCC of 2013. So how we can deal the situation of waste management by reducing, and also reducing the GHGs in the atmosphere. So why I'm discussing it? This is the global statistics available for the GHGs and the waste water. These are the the data. These are the waste coming from landfills, wastewater, incineration. So you can see that how all these sources are contributing in the atmosphere, the metric ton of GHGs in the atmosphere. So it is starting from 1990 and going the projected value. The baseline data is also there, as well as projected data is also there by 2050. So by 20, I mean, if you see the figures from 2010, from 2010, so the all these contribution is going very high, and in by 2050, the landfill methane will be 2,900 metric ton of methane in the atmosphere. So which is very high, which is very high. So these are the scenario. Based on this, we have to manage our resources. We have to manage our waste, and then only you can say, okay, we have a number of options available with us, but it is only when you are able to deal this alarming situation of waste. And you see, according to the in this statistics, it says that how the different continents or subcontinents are contributing to the BOD. So these are the BOD data. I got it from the IPCC report. So, but you see, the news is not very good. And if you compare it, the data of 1990 and 2001, the 10 years data says that the developing country in South Asia, the BOD demand is increased by 300. So from 1700 to 2000. So we have to see this, and according to that, we have to deal the situation at local level, regional level, as well as at the national level. So we'll discuss it, but more focus will be on the waste management. So before we discuss the waste management, there is always a statutory warning for the people, or for the practitioner, and for the professionals. So knowledge is knowing that tomato is fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. Why I mention it over here? You should be knowing that how much at household level, how much you are producing waste at household level, whether you are able to deal the situation, whether you are able to manage your waste or not. So this should be a kind of rule at household level. So when I'm talking about waste management, everyone, each individual should consider a phrase. Why not the charity should begin at home? Instead of talking about managing the resources, managing the waste nationwide, but we have to deal the situation at household level, at individual. That is very important. So we have to see that how we can how we can quantify and measure our scale of management. So that is one thing. So basic principle of waste management. So basic principle of waste management says that you have to follow the three principles. And I think it's very, I'm not telling you the new thing or a new theory. We all are aware of it. But the thing is that we have to now ingrain this theory in our mind. So once we put it in our brain, once we put it in our blood, you will be able to think of reduce, reuse, and recycle your waste. So this basic principle of waste management is very important. You should know that producers, consumers, discharge, municipality, whether the authorities are going to act over it or not, proper disposable. So you should also have a place to dispose it off. Okay. So for waste management, always remember, always remember, decompose your synthetic idea. Decompose your synthetic idea and compose your organic thought into it. Then you will be managed to uh, deal the situation of waste coming out from your city, from your area, from your household. Going to the next slide. Okay, so I have mentioned over it KYCCC. So when you go to the bank, so the banker is always asking, can I have your KYC? So KYC is know your customer and know your client. But be careful, I have not mentioned it over here. KYCCC says know your climatic carbon consumption. Okay, how much carbon you are producing, you should be able to quantify it. Even when you say that it is very difficult, how am I going to uh, make a note sheet or a data based management for how much I am responsible for contributing a carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, methane in the atmosphere. So carbon footprinting is very much important over here, that you should be able to know how much climate change is in your waste bin. So the picture says, the first picture says one household that recycle. If you recycle, that is one car off the road. So that is very important. So that means you are smartly dealing with situation of waste management as well as GHGs as well as the climate change. So it is solving your problem at local level. Then when you are multiplying it, okay, when you are going to your colleague, to your family, then the situation will multiply, and at the end you will see how the global scenario is going to be changed. But before that, you should keep this theory in your mind. The other thing is that reducing a carbon footprint. On the second picture, it says that reduction by percentage. It is mentioned over here. I mean, these slides will be available online through Facebook. So, live car free, battery electric vehicle, one less flight, renewable electricity, public transport, refurbishment, renovation, vegan diet, heat pump, improved cooking equipment, renewable based heating. If you follow all these things, you can manage your carbon footprint, and it is all linked to the waste management. I mean, it is nothing, I am not telling you the new. You should be knowing that how the waste can be managed in reducing the GHGs in the atmosphere. Going to the next slide. Okay, these are the the life cycle assessment. What is my input? Okay, and how it is going to work. Suppose you have extracted the material, oil, wood, trees, and then taking a raw material for making a final product out of it. So you should know all these things, how the trajectory is going to work, managing the waste, in managing the greenhouse gases, and at the time of emission, how am I going to manage my emission. So in the third, if you see the GHG emissions, on the third column it says GHG emissions. So carbon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, methane, everything is mentioned over here. How you are going to. So composting is also mentioned. I mean, a few minutes ago we were discussing. I mean, in the last day or day before yesterday, we were also discussing about the waste management. So once you have this scenario with us, once this model is available with the individual, I mean, it is nothing to do with the kind of a scientific principle or scientific theory. Just awareness is required over here. Then you can go for thinking of sequestering the carbon, reducing the emissions. So at the end, in the fourth column, it says that increased forest carbon sequestration, carbon storage in the soil, and avoid fossil fuel, because you have another source of fuel and the energy available with this wind energy, solar energy. Then the other, the sources are also available. Then carbon in long term storage in landfills. So that is another, the landfills are also storing your carbon. Avoid fossil fuel. So this is the life cycle assessment of your the entire scenario of emission. So if you can, follow this principle or a theory, you can manage your waste. So waste management rule. I mean, we should not be very selfish. Okay, how can I manage, the waste at home? but you should also think about your city, about your country, about your uh, nation, about your region also. So here I think I would like to indicate once again the People Resilience Lab is doing wonderful work in the city of Bhagalpur, and reviving the ephemeral stream called Champa, and the how the composting is also helping in managing the resources, giving another livelihood option to the people who are at the verge of climate change. And then once you have done it at local level, you will go for the composting at large scale. So the municipal authorities should be responsible of composting at large scale, and this is what is happening in all European, Australia, in American regions. And that is why they are managed to clean the carbon, to clean the GHGs from their environment, from their atmosphere. And you won't believe, Denmark is the country, Norway is the country. I mean, all these Scandinavian countries set the example of how they have reduced the greenhouse gases through the composting. I mean, they are totally. I mean, the recent news. I mean, day before yesterday, I got the news from it. It was published also in the Huffington Post that Sweden is now totally a coal-free energy country. Please mark it. Sweden is the coal-free energy country now. They're totally on renewable energy. So here I'm telling you that the People Resilience Lab can, make a huge contribution in making a city very healthy, a very sustainable over here. Just you need a chain of hands, and chain of hands is not the individual. You also need to hold the hand of local government. That is very much required. It takes time, but definitely you will have to go a long way. And my wishes are always with you. Okay, so then when we are managing our vermicompost, I mean, few minutes ago, Dubeji was discussing in detail about vermicompost and how the best example, one can set at household level, at the with the government also. At KVK they are doing a lot of work. Vermicompost, KVK, yeah, KVK is a ICR institution. They are also, they have in Central Research Institution on Vermicompost is there. I'm forgetting, but I will give you the address and all the contact details of that institution. So your um, NGO can, people can, establish a contact with them. And then animal feed management. So animal feed management, here we are not realizing, in zero waste management, we are not realizing it. But the people who are based, the people who are very much relying on livestock management, they can manage their the livestock feed through the waste. And this is what is happening in Rajasthan and Gujarat. And I have seen, when I was based in Africa, and I have seen the people from in Kenya and Zimbabwe. I think Rani knows very well. I mean, she has visited Zimbabwe, she has visited the neighboring countries, Botswana, Zambia, and she has seen all these examples that how the people are managing the feed of livestock, because livestock is the main source of the livelihood for the vulnerable community in Africa. And on the other side, if you see that low cost biogas plant is required. So this you can also manage with the local community. I mean, if NGO can take the initiative, I mean, the very good example of biogas plant can be, I mean, it can set up anywhere in any village, at any household, at any community, at city level also, anywhere. So this is very much required, okay, in the zero waste management. And then when we say waste management, so okay, this is the the diagrammatic representation of waste management and how you are managing the environmental risk. So you are taking out the resources from the nature and using the energy, converting it into resources and then solid waste, then going. So it should be your responsibility how uh, you can transport it to the incinerator, and then these the dreaded the toxic gases can be managed inside the incinerator, vent gas treatment of dioxin, nature, dust, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and then leachate, dioxide, heavy metals, BOD, biological oxygen demand, and carbon oxygen. So the focus is, I mean, if you see this schematic diagram, it says that reduce, reuse, and recycling for managing your waste. So it is reducing also. I mean, it is also giving you a good situation of your. It is giving you an opportunity to survive more. So sustainable society and waste management believes in the resources, managing their waste through 3 R's of reduce, reuse, and recycle. So whatever you are, you know, taking it from the nature, you can con convert it in a, you can manage it in a way so that you should have a sustainable society with you. This is my last slide. This is my last slide, and yes, it says, okay, yes, I wanna survive. I wanna survive, and then it says you will die of a. The girl says you will die of a old age, but I will die of a climate change. So we have to remove this thought from our young minds that no, you will also survive. You will survive longer than with in the current scenario of climate change. In a very when you are converting your everything sustainable, the world is changed by your example, not your opinion on the other picture. So this is all about I wanted to discuss. So I think in my previous lecture I discussed more about how the climate change is impacting our system, and how the things are changing sector wise, and just wanted to also, can I come just, okay, um, okay, can you see me in the video?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to show you one thing. This is the, a national manual I have developed for the government of India. And this manual is all about, the manual on adaptation to climate change in the Indian Himalayan region. So why I'm telling you, this manual is also covering one of the chapter on, the managing your waste in the Himalayan region, because the Himalayan cities are facing major problem of managing their resources. Majorly, if you go, I have, the pictures I have shown in the chapter of Mizoram city, of Shimla city, of Srinagar city. I mean, they are not even, still they don't have a, good option. They don't have any, the model, kind of, the solution model available with them of managing their waste. So still there, the dialogues and discussions are going on with the local government, with the national government, of dealing the situation of waste management uh, in the urban areas. So this is all about I wanted to discuss. I just wanted to highlight these issues of GHGs and how one can, at individual level, you can manage your resources, and then also um, how you can link all these things with the climate change. So that is a very, very much important. I mean, we cannot split all these things, but um, these all are integrated with each other. Once you have a problem, you have a diagnostic tool with you. Once you have a diagnostic tool with you, the solution will come out. Thank you very much. If you have any question, please go ahead.
सर आपने जो एग्जांपल दिया कि स्वीडन में वेस्ट से एनर्जी में कन्वर्ट करते हैं, और तो वेस्ट से एनर्जी में कन्वर्ट करने में जो प्रोसेस होगा तो वो क्या सस्टेनेबल होगा? लाइक उससे जो गैस उसको आप बर्न करेंगे या उससे जो गैस निकलेगा वो कैसे सस्टेनेबल होगा?
शुभकामनी, आपकी आवाज मुझे आ नहीं रही है ठीक से। आप एक बार दोबारा मुझे अपना क्वेश्चन बताएंगे?
सर, आपने जो स्वीडन वाला एग्जांपल दिया ना कि वेस्ट को वो लोग एनर्जी में कन्वर्ट कर रहे हैं, तो वो कितना सस्टेनेबल है?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I have mentioned already, I have mentioned if you just click on Scandinavian countries government website, not now, since last 10 years, since last 15 years, they have stopped many of these. Norway, Denmark, they are not even using all these energies, but they are totally, renewable, solar as well as the wind. So wind energy, they are maximum, utilizing uh, the source of wind for, producing the energy.
No,
So,
they're
but they are,
doing that. They're doing that, but they're also converting their waste into energy.
yeah, waste into energy. Yes, yes, yes,
So
very much.
they are not only doing that. What they are doing is they are purchasing their waste from neighboring countries,
Exactly, exactly.
and they are
And
turning it into energy.
and you will not believe, I just wanted to mention over it here that one of the Japanese company, they have requested our organization that whether we can, from the government of India, can we buy, I'm talking about this country, Japan. So Japan approached us, and I'm the one who is coordinating all these things. Japan requested, can we buy all your crop residue? Is it possible? So then we have to, discuss it with the ministries, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Finance, and all these things are, with the state government. So we are, still our dialogues are on, and we are working on it, but the things are, moving it positively towards managing and, exporting our this residue to to Japan. So you see, all these countries, Australia is also, totally
What are they
going on.
doing with the crop residue?
Pardon?
What do they want to do with the crop residue?
They will convert it into the energy.
But how?
The biomass, through the biomass,
There are
So,
two ways of converting your energy. One is by the biogas method, by
yes, biogas.
turning it into methane, and the
Yes,
other is
yes,
by burning it and generating energy. So
generating.
Sweden, my understanding is Sweden and Scandinavian countries are burning it and turning into energy. Am I wrong in my understanding?
I have to check it actually. What
Because
mechanism are they
what
using?
they're doing is they are consolidating the
But
waste
most,
into
yeah,
into briquettes, into fuel bricks, and
into
then they
fuel
are
bricks.
burning those fuel bricks.
Yeah, they are putting all their, the incinerator, you know it very well. They are, sending everything on the incinerator and converting it, and then the,
From my understanding is, I don't think it is a very eco-friendly way, because you are doing the same thing by adding on to the greenhouse gases. This is my understanding.
that is true, but some of the countries, what they are doing a lot of, near their plant, they are putting a lot of, the deforestation is also done. Forestation has also been done by these countries, and then, sequestering their carbon. So this is parallelly also, subsequently it is going on. So, but I have to check it. I'll get back to you on this. That how the Scandinavian countries are, converting their, the waste and converting it into energy. But
Also,
yeah, the recent example. I'm telling you. Day before yesterday, I got this news that they have totally. The Sweden stopped the last thermal plant was used for producing this energy in Sweden day before yesterday.
okay. Also, what I would like to ask is, do we have any statistics regarding what the inappropriate waste handling is doing to our climate? Is there some kind of research on that?
Pardon? Can you come again?
Just wondering if there is any data, any concrete evidence on what the inappropriate waste handling and landfills are doing to the greenhouse gas emissions in India.
I mean, see, as of now in our country, most of the scientific institutions are involved in managing these um, energy on a trial and error basis. So I mean, as such, uh, I am not sure whether the data will be available or not, but you can check it with the IIT and Indian Institute of Science or with the CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board, if they have data available with them. But I am sure something you will definitely get it from these institutions. Even the PhD students, I mean, all these doctoral students, both PDF postdoc fellows, they are working on it. So, but you have to check it whether the data is available or not.
Is there any more questions on this topic? Climate change and its impact, the impact of waste management on climate change. The thing is, Dr. Pandey, we are not thinking about this. This is one area which people don't think about. And this area has not been talked about enough because there are many aspects where we clearly think about climate change, use of air conditioners, use of refrigerators. There are many things because it has also come down to the policy level, because the 5-star rating, the star ratings which comes on the equipments, on these things that when we buy, we see that, okay, so this is the kind of energy emissions that will happen, and that is how we are also paying more for the for these particular gadgets. But
Right.
when it comes to waste management, nobody is thinking about that, because I don't think enough conversation has been carried out that when we throw things and it is just lying on the road, it is not only a visual blight, it is not only a problem to our system, we feel bad about it, but it is also having some kind of implications on the climate.
Right. And why people have not taken it very seriously, because the waste, whatever the waste is there, or coming out from the household, from the city, from the here, it is less contributing in, in emissions. So the contribution in the GHGs are less from the waste side. So this is what we have not, discussed a lot about, how we can, manage our resources in reducing the GHGs. So this is one of the factor mentioned in the IPCC 5th assessment report. So if you go and read chapter number 7, it talks about the waste management and GHGs.
Can you share this, Dr. Pandey? Can you share this with us? Can you share this?
I can share this chapter with you. This chapter is available.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
सर गौरव का एक क्वेश्चन है, कैन वी शिफ्ट टू ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग बिकॉज केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर्स आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर क्लाइमेट चेंज? आई थिंक
ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग, हेलो,
ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग से हम लोग कुछ कंट्रीब्यूशन दे सकते हैं अपने क्लाइमेट चेंज को बचाने में?
देखिए, ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग को ले सकते हैं क्लाइमेट चेंज से बचाने के लिए, बट डू यू थिंक दैट इट इज अ लॉन्ग टर्म सॉल्यूशन? यस, because we have to feed our billion mouths. Do you think that organic farming is suffice to meet the requirement of the people who are not getting and receiving food? So what I would say that when we are talking about the sustainable development, practitioners should not have a flights of imagination. We should be slightly realistic in managing the resources. Okay, so that is one thing I am telling you. Why not? Yes, if we have a surplus resources available with us, if we can see that, okay, now it is the time, because in Sikkim is the organic state where they have managed it full-fledgedly. So because the region is very small, you can manage. But if you talk about, Uttar Pradesh of Rajasthan, where, organic farming is not at all possible also. I mean, we are talking about, for Rajasthan, for semi-arid, for arid region, we are thinking of, developing a drought-tolerant variety. Even in Bihar also, in the northern part of Bihar, the flood-tolerant varieties. So we are discussing about these things. So on a larger scale, at national level, immediately you cannot say that, okay, I will convert my agriculture and organic farming. It is not possible. It is not possible. But yeah, subsequently, I mean, side by side, one can, test it under the business as usual scenario. You can go ahead. I mean, I'm not saying that you should not, because um, we are also discussing our survival in a sustainable way. So why not? We should also opt it. So both should go parallel. So this is my suggestion. But at individual level, you can do. I mean, at community level, you can do.
Dr. Pandey, one more question. What I wanted to ask was, since we know that we now know that there's a linkage between waste generated from the cities and from the rural areas, and we know very well the waste generated in the cities is larger in terms of volume. So when we are also talking about adaptation, climate change adaptation at one level, at the policy level, these discussions are on. Adaptation plans are being developed. All the states are developing state action plans for climate change. What I want to know is there some kind of coordination which is going on between the municipal corporations who is responsible for taking care of the garbage and this group of the multi-stakeholder group which is developing the manual or which is developing the state action plans? I mean, is there some kind of multi-stakeholder coordination going on where it is clear to the stakeholder, the municipal corporation as a stakeholder, that their garbage, the garbage generated by their municipal corporation, is also a contributor to climate change? And are they addressing the mitigation?
Yes, very much. If you see the Karnataka, Bangalore city, they have managed it very well, and they have addressed the issues all related to, managing their waste. And then they also had a very good, multiple stakeholder where they have involved not only the CBOs, NGOs, but they have also invited an individual. How their thoughts can be taken as, under their policy of managing the waste, and that is why, they have set up a very good example in Karnataka. The biggest problem we should not forget it over here, why we are not, ready to take the responsibility of the managing our waste, because the finance are required. You need a huge finances for that. Funding is required. So I think recently we are also in touch with the Delhi government of managing the the garbage. We have discussed the issue with the Delhi government, with the municipal authorities, and then we are going to discuss it with the some external agencies for their involvement in managing our the waste coming out from the cities. And then other thing is that we need to also arrange there should be a proper co-investment planning is required in managing your waste. So that is one thing, because how we are receiving the money in managing the waste from the Department of Environment. No, there should be a separate agency which should disburse the fund to the authorities in managing the waste. And then only the state government can install and then establish the bio incinerator, biodigester, biogas plant. Everything can be done. But many of the good states, they have already set up the example in our country of managing their resources through the authorities through proper channel with a multiple stakeholder consultation. This is what they have done. If you want, I can share the document also.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to understand whether garbage management is a part of the mitigation plan. Climate change mitigation plan, whether it is being taken at the policy level has it been recognized at the policy level that
Yes.
it has
Yes,
been?
yes, yes. It is already it has already been mentioned in most of the okay. Let me just tell you one thing. We have a first version of state action plan on the climate change. It was released in the year of 2010 or 12 by most of the states in our country. But then the Ministry of Environment and Forest Climate Change, they have realized that now we should, because the climate change and the scenario is keep changing very rapidly, so we should have a second version of revision of state action plan on the climate change. And then in the second, in the revised part and the portion of SAPCC, it is clearly mentioned that it is the responsibility of the state authority of managing the waste. It is full-fledgedly recognized, and it should be taken care. It should be taken care through the mitigation principle by adopting the principle of um, uh, uh, low emission carbon. So it is already mentioned in the second version of the state action plan on the climate change. I mean, very soon, by next year, this year we are facing COVID coronavirus. I don't know that how many states are going to release their second version. By 2021, you are definitely going to see the second revised version of state action plan on the climate change, and it is mentioned over there that waste management is the part of the mitigation.
Could you please share these documents with us, because it will be very useful if we can get to understand these things.
Yeah, I will share it with you. No problem.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suraj Pandey. It was a very interesting and very informative talk from your side. And definitely we are going to take up those things that you have outlined, and we have taken notes of that. This particular video, this talk had been live streamed on Facebook, and there were many viewers, and there are many comments coming from there also. However, we are running short of time. We have our next speaker already on board. So thank you so much, Dr. Pandey. And now we would like to invite Nayan ji. Nayan ji is a student at the I think Nayan ji himself will pronounce the complex name of his university. He is doing landscape architecture. He's doing masters in landscape architecture in Germany, and I think his thesis is on the Ganga River and its riverfront. He will explain more about that, and we would, in this forum, people in the Resilience Lab and all its viewers and participants would like to learn these things, whatever he has researched, that is one, and what advice he would give. I don't know how far you understand about Champa, Nayan ji, how far you have seen River Champa, but Champa River is also a part of the same floodplain, and it is a tributary